Money to the Philippines, how to. The reason why I'm doing this video is I got a lot of questions regarding how to send money to the Philippines in the best way. Who is giving you the best rate? Okay. And also, just as important, is who is charging you the highest fees. Because a lot of people like a certain service because the fee is low. And that sounds great, but if your exchange rate is bad, that's not a good thing. So you're paying less from here, but the receiver is getting a lot less. So it's not really a win-win situation. So ideally, you're going to be sending the least amount of money you can, and they're going to be receiving the most amount of money that they can. So when you're looking at this right now, as of right now, then you're getting 50.4 peso. So 50.4. So we want to remember that. So the spreadsheet that I had, I typed it in last night and it was 50.2. So for simplicity stakes, I'm just going to keep it at that. But either way, you can get an idea of the conversion rate on each one of these because these were all taken at the same time. So there's definitely quite a few different services. The most popular ones that I see is going to be Zoom, XE, Wise, MoneyGram, and Western Union, of course. Now, you may use something completely different, and that's fine. You leave it in the comment department or comment section, and I'll look at it. There's more out there, I'm sure. So I know this is the internet, so someone is going to jump in and say, I use this service and I like it. And that's fine. I'm not saying these are the only options. I'm just saying these are the most common options when you're doing this. So looking at Zoom, if you're sending $1,000, and I'm going to keep it $1,000 on each one, so we can look at the rate and look at the fee to keep it simple. I'm not going to put $200 on one and $5 on another, and you're going to say the fee's higher. Well, obviously it would be. So we'll just keep it at 1,000 for all of them. So right away, I don't like this. Your total fee isn't bad, $4.99. That's not bad, but it's not great. However, look at what the receiver's getting in PHP. So the peso rate on here, as of right now, and I'm recording them both at the same time, is 48.2. So that's not very good. That's not really what you want to get for an exchange rate, considering it's 50.4 right now when I recorded this. When I wrote it down, it was 50.2. So, I don't really love that. Now, you can go to bank deposit, for example, and we'll put this amount in, and here's the thing. So yes, you save $4.99 on the fee. However, your exchange rate is still the worst. So this is not a service that I use. If you use it and it works good, that's great. I'm not saying anything negative about it, but personally, I don't want to spend $1,000 or $1,005 and have the receiver get the smallest amount. So let's go to option 2 that you see a lot, which is XE. They might call it something else, but that's how it's spelled, so I'm going to keep it simple. So if you're sending $1,000 right now, they are getting, at the rate, if you look at it right down here, 50. So 0.009, which is nothing. So they're getting 50. So a lot better. Already 1.8 peso roughly. So you're getting a lot closer to that number that you want to get to, which is 50.4. So 50, that's pretty good. So I'm happy with that. Now you're looking at the fee and it's $0. That's good. So you're getting a lot more peso, and on this situation, the fee is lower. Now, of course, you have other methods of sending it. So if you went to credit card, which is never a good idea, but if it's an emergency and that's what you have to do, now your rate dropped down to 48.5, and they're charging you a fee. If you're using a debit card, rate jumps up to 49.6. So this is where a lot of people get a little confused. They'll see an ad from this company saying, great exchange rate, you're going to save a lot of money compared to your bank. And then when you first look at the website, you're like, oh, this is great. And that's a good exchange rate. And then you send the money in a different method, not realizing that the exchange rate is a lot lower. So this isn't the worst. If the person can pick it up, and you're doing a bank-to-bank transfer, that's not bad. I mean, zero fee, and they're getting 50 peso. So that's something to keep in mind. This is not a bad service. So now we go over to Wise. So right here, let me pull up this chart. Okay, you're going to notice that you're always, basically on here, you're always getting a higher amount. Okay, so the rate on this is 50.5, so that's higher than anywhere else. The funny part, it's actually higher than what Google is telling you it's worth right now. So that's actually a little funny. So Google's telling you the peso is worth 50.4, and Wise, like I said, is, you know, giving 50.5. So one thing to take into consideration, though, is when you're using Wise, they take the money out of the money that you're sending. So, for example, if you send $1,000, they're minusing your let's say your $9.24 fee, or your $12.27 fee. They're taking it out of the 1,000. So you're sending exactly 1,000, and then the receiver is getting exactly 49.79. Which is still better, a lot better than looking at this option, of course, because you're spending over $1,000 and they're getting, you know, 48. So that's just a bad idea all around. So this one gives you the option that you're not spending more than $1,000, because you're spending 1,000 and they're getting, you know, the chunk of that minus the fee. So we have only two different payment methods, which isn't the greatest, but if you have options to either one of these, preferably bank, you know, your fee is under $10, and you're getting the highest rate. And now, as you can see, it dropped down to 50.4, because like I said, it fluctuates all the time. So this is not a bad option, in my opinion. You're sending exactly $1,000, and the receiver is getting 49.94. That's what they're getting, and that's after you paid the fee, because they're giving you a higher exchange rate than any of the other services. So this is a great choice to keep in mind. Personally, I do like using Wise for a couple different options, because I have a Wise debit card, credit card over here, and it makes it easy because I can just transfer my USD into peso, get the highest rate, and then pull it out at an ATM. So it is convenient, and you are getting the highest rate. You do have a fee, but most of the services up here you have a fee for. So it's a personal choice. Now go over to MoneyGram, and you're going to notice it gets a little tricky, but not as bad as Western Union, for example. So when you come over to MoneyGram, if you're paying in cash, then, you know, here's your rate, for example. So it's 49.6. Sorry, here's the rate. And the fee is right here. So fees vary depending. But the point being is, if you switch it over to debit/credit, the fee goes to $12.99. They keep the fee the same for credit or debit, which does make it easier to calculate, because if you go over to Western Union, for example, they have a different fee for each one. So it gets tricky. So this option, if you're going over to a bank account, luckily it's a $0 fee, which a lot of them are, and you're getting a pretty good rate. You're getting 49.6. So if they have the option to pick it up at a bank account, because they just need it in there and then they can go withdraw it, that's a great option to use. If they're going to do a cash pickup, now watch this, now the fee jumped up. So you're going to spend $4.99 on the fee, and they're going to still get a decent rate. So the fee isn't huge on this, but if you're going to use your debit card or credit card and they're getting the cash, now you're spending $15 on top of your 1,000, and they're getting 49.63, which isn't bad. So that's still a decent choice. But if you're paying in cash and they're picking up in cash, so $4.99. Of course, it does change by location. So I'm not going to bother checking the address for where I live, and then for you, it's slightly different. But this is not about an option. MoneyGram is a decent way to send it over there, relatively quick. If you're using the online banking, it's ideal. If not, then I would suggest using cash, debit or credit. You're throwing away the $13. I mean, I'd rather send more peso or have them receive more peso than I want to spend $13 and just go and it disappear. That's not something I like to do. I'm very frugal and cautious of my money, which is why I'm getting ready to move and retire at 40. So point being is, let's look at these options, and you get $4.99, but you get a decent exchange rate. So for all these options, when it comes down to MoneyGram, the exchange rate stays the same, which makes it simple. Because when you looked at some of the other services, their rates changed every time you change the way you're going to send. MoneyGram is a good option. The exchange rate is decent, not the best, but it's decent. And if you do it correctly, you can get very low fees. You can have little to no fee, and you're having a decent exchange rate. So I would keep that along with Wise, because if you look at this, you do have a little bit of a fee on your end, which comes out of the $1,000, but then the person is still getting the most amount of peso. So if they're getting 49.94 and you only spent $1,000 total, that's pretty good. And if you're doing it with MoneyGram on this option, you're spending exactly $1,000. They're getting 49.6. So a little bit of a difference. You can see one is saving you a little bit more, or they're getting a little bit more. Sorry, both have low fees or no fees when doing it this method. So those are both good options. It's going to come down to personal preference or convenience for you, because they're so similar. It's 0.2 of a peso difference. I wouldn't worry about it personally. Then you have Western Union. So Western Union, I hate talking about it because they confuse everyone, and people think that they're getting a great rate, and then they send the money, and then they're scratching their head saying their significant other, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, their wife and their girlfriend is not getting the amount that they thought they sent, and they're getting confused. Well, it's very easy for people to get confused if they're on this site, pulling up my numbers here, because when you go to Western Union, you're going to notice the rate, the conversion rate, which is, right over here. Sorry, here's the conversion rate, 48.3. Changes every time you change the service. Whether you switch to a bank account, it switches the rate. If you change cash in store to pay online, most of the time the rate is going to usually change with that as well if you go back to bank account. So if cash pickup or bank account changes the rate, then you want to be careful, because you want to avoid the cash pickup if you can, at least as far as sending cash, for example. So when you're looking at this, paying cash and sending cash is definitely your worst option. So if you go into Western Union, you send cash, they receive cash, look at the number. You're getting the worst exchange rate yet, 48.3, and you're paying an $11 fee. So you're spending $1,011, and they're only getting 48. So don't do this. Okay, don't send cash and have them pick up cash. If you have to send cash, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but if that happens to happen, at least if they're getting a bank account and they can withdraw it, now your fee went up to $12, but at least their peso rate is now at 49.9. That's a big difference from 48.2. So that's why people get confused, because every time you change something on here, the exchange rate changes with it. It's not just the fee, which also changes, but the exchange rate changes as well. So the rate and the fee are changing. That's why people get lost on here. So I would avoid paying in cash. Let's go over to online. So, look at the difference here. Credit card, $29 fee. That's not good. That's not really ideal. I personally would not spend a $30 fee to send my money. Just me though. If you're sending, sorry about that. Okay, so if you're sending credit card and they're doing cash pickup, now look at it. The exchange rate dropped down to 49.07. Not horrible, but not the best. But now you have a $37 fee. So don't do that. Don't send cash and don't send with a credit card. Now, if you use the debit card, the rate stayed the same, but the fee dropped down to $10. So looking at this 49.07, that's not a horrible rate. And sending with the debit card, that's not a horrible fee. So if you're going to do this, I would recommend going right to bank account. If you go to cash pickup, not a bad fee, $3.99. The peso rate is okay. So doing cash pickup from bank account, not bad, not the best. Now, if they have the option to receive in a bank account, you're getting a good rate. 49.4 is one of the highest ones we've seen. Not the highest, but it is up there. So they're getting the most amount of peso, and your fee is actually 0, which is great. So you're sending $1,000 and they're getting 49.4. So that's pretty good so far. It's still not quite the option that you have for Wise, because this, you're sending $1,000 total, because the fee comes out of the 1,000, so you're sending 1,000 total. But because the exchange rate is always higher on Wise, it used to be called something else, but they changed it to Wise. Either way, you're spending $1,000 total. Your receiver is getting 49.9, which that's good so far. That's your best option, because if you go back here, yes, this option, bank to bank, has 0 fee and you're getting a good exchange rate, but they're still getting 49.4. So far you can see who's in the lead. All right, so what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to add this so you can see the full chart and what is good or what would be best. So your last option is going to be right here, which is the one I prefer and the one that I use most of the time. So a lot of people believe that when you're sending peso to the Philippines, or you're sending USD to the Philippines, they have to receive it in PHP. They do not have to receive it in peso. In fact, when I send money over, I almost never send for them to have pickup in peso. Now, if they live in a province, you're probably going to have to do that, because you're going to have to go to a local office to withdraw the money at a Western Union or something like that, and then you have to convert the money at the same location. So you're probably going to have to go and send USD and they receive peso. However, if you're near a city, then you have another option. So what I've done plenty of times is I've sent $1,000 USD, for example. Then my wife would then withdraw it as $1,000 USD. She wouldn't take out the peso conversion. She would take out the $1,000 USD. Then if she goes over to the mall, or there's a good exchange rate in like an airport, probably not very convenient, but if you go into a better exchange center, then you're going to get the full amount. So then she would be going in with the $1,000 and getting the 50.4 instead of 49.9. So your best option is going to be sending USD. They're able to pick up USD and then just exchange it at a place with a good exchange rate. That's not convenient for everyone, and I get it. So there's going to be a lot of people that they can't withdraw it in USD, or they can't exchange it somewhere at a good rate. If you're going to go to a place on the side of the road, a small little corner place in the mall, some local office that exchanges and receives money for Gcash and stuff like that, their exchange rate's not going to be very good. So I can see why you're sending $1,000 and paying a fee, and they're receiving 48, for example, which doesn't really make any sense. if you can, try to stick to one of these better options. Okay, you're going to see that the better options are the good options in yellow, and then you're going to see some of your best options in green, because that's what they end up getting, the full amount. Another thing to add is, like I said, if they can withdraw in cash in USD and then exchange, great. But if not, at least you know your best options are going to be those ones right there that are in green. So I hope this helps everyone. I'm not promoting you use Western Union, MoneyGram, Wise, XE, Zoom, or any of them. I'm not saying any of them are bad, but you can clearly see the difference in each one of these companies on how much the person receives and how much you're throwing away in the wind. Because when you pay a fee, you're just throwing away. You're not doing anything with it. And if they're getting a bad exchange rate and you're paying a fee, you're throwing away your money, and that person is not getting as much as they should be. So they're also throwing money in the garbage as well. So anyways, I hope that helps everyone. If you have any questions on these, let me know, and I will try to include the spreadsheet in here so everyone can look at it and have a better idea, and you can always just change the exchange rate number and then keep it really simple for yourself. So I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.